Hello and welcome for another episode of this season of Try This on Wisp Sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kirstin Lauritzen, and today I have a very special guest with me. I have my sister, Tia Wright. She is a CrossFit athlete. She's also an Ironman, just like me. She did Coeur d'Alene with me as well, and we're going to talk about that today. I'm so excited to introduce you to her. Tia, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. I'm so excited to be on your podcast.
I know, it's going to be so fun. Well, first, why don't you introduce yourself? Like, give us a little bit of a background. What are you doing right now? Yeah, what are you up to?
Background is mainly in CrossFit. So like you were talking about, I started CrossFit 12 or 13 years ago and absolutely fell in love. I mainly fell in love with CrossFit because of its its ability to be varied. And obviously that does include things like endurance sports. So running, biking, and swimming, but not as often. But I think the reason I fell in love with it the most was the community and working out with other people, which is also very different from endurance sports because usually you do a lot of your training alone. But anyways, and then I fell in love with it so much, I knew I wanted to make a career out of it. So I started coaching and fell in love with working with people, fell in love with watching their transformations. Also kind of like focused my college career around how I could make a CrossFit degree out of something that didn't really exist. And then I also became competitive in CrossFit, which is where I learned a lot just about the self, about the mindset, about what it takes to, kind of get to a new level that is unknown to you in sport. And then COVID happened and that threw everyone for a loop. All competitors across the world were probably like, well, what is my purpose? And then Kirstin encouraged me to do she encouraged me to try some triathlons and I just sort of jumped right to Ironmans. So why not go all in? And now I am currently working online and I have a couple online clients. And yeah, it's been great, but that's sort of my mini background.
Yeah. You also are a health coach as well, right?
Yeah. Lifestyle is obviously very important when it comes to being a competitor. So I do work with people, not just in fitness, but also in changing your habits and looking in a mirror to see what it is that you're already telling yourself that you need that you're not listening to. So that's, a huge part of that.
Well, we'll definitely get into that in a little bit. What is your background as far as just sports in general? Have you, I know the answer to these questions, but they know.
I know, it's funny.
So have you always been playing sports?
Yeah, as you know, I tried everything. I did ice skating for like 2 weeks. I tried soccer, hated it. Kirstin loved it. I did basketball for a season and shot the basketball into the wrong hoop. And then I settled in on volleyball and I actually loved volleyball, but I could tell that my skills weren't as talented as my physical fitness abilities. But I also felt that any sport I ever played except tennis never pushed me to my physical limits. So I never felt like I got to use my fitness or it was ever really that valued in any sport I ever played, especially volleyball. And I just had this insane endurance and I had a different mindset from a lot of the players. And then the last couple of years of high school, I played tennis and I loved it because I was an individual on the court and I did get to show a little bit of that endurance, a little bit of that strength. There were other tennis players who came up to me and said, like, how do you hit the ball so hard? It's like, I don't know. But I did feel like when I was younger, and in track and field, there was a part of me that I couldn't reach. There was a part of my fitness that was inaccessible because of the sports I was playing.
Interesting. Well, you also played volleyball at the collegiate level too, right? For a little bit.
Yes. I actually quit volleyball for competitive CrossFit.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So was there anything, so that's really interesting that you felt like you were sort of restricted by the type of sport that you were playing. Is that ultimately why CrossFit sort of grabbed your attention?
Yeah. Imagine being a race car driver and only being able to drive your car to 50% capacity. Mm-hmm. And then you get in a car that you're allowed to drive as fast as you want, as fast as your abilities can take you, as just even if it was just straight. And CrossFit was definitely that for me. I could redline. There were no boundaries. There was no limit to how good I could be. And it was so incredibly measurable. It was so measurable. It was, you have a monitor on a rowing machine. And I remember doing workouts in 2011 and 12 and not being able to consistently row over 800 calories per hour. And then I remember a stage in my life where I was like, whoa, all of a sudden I'm averaging in every workout over 1,000 calories per hour. And then I even remember the jump to 1,200 calories per hour. And then I remember this one time that I was really, really fit, that I could, average a 13 or 14 in a workout. It was so measurable. And those were the simple things that I just sort of like fell in love with and learning new skills. But it wasn't just you learned a new skill and you got good at it and then you just got to go do it for your team. It was you learn a new skill and then what's next? What's the next goal? You do that skill at a tougher version, or you do that skill at that tougher version with way more reps. And this gradual increase was really what like drew me to it. And it was what was missing in sport for me.
Well, that makes a whole lot of sense why you jumped straight into an Ironman. Triathlon versus like most people where they start with like a sprint or an Olympic and work their way up. That's hilarious.
I did the sprint and the Olympic in my head. I dreamed about them.
Yeah, right. So, okay. So as it comes to like CrossFit and regionals, what was that journey like? I mean, you started out with CrossFit back when, it had started up for quite a while, but you were still kind of in the middle of when it was just starting to kind of become popular. And there was a lot of it wasn't quite popular yet. What was that journey? We kind of know why you ended up in that sport, but what was that journey like at that time going to regionals and that whole thing?
Yeah. Interesting perspective too, because as the sport got more competitive, I got more confident with myself. And so usually I think people, as a sport gets more competitive and more popular, they get more afraid of the competition, or the competition just gets too fierce for them that they stay kind of at their level and then they fall off in competition. But for me, it was a maturity development. In 2011, I didn't make it because I didn't really do the open. And then in 2012 was my first year at regionals, and I kind of didn't know what I was showing up for. I didn't know regionals qualified you for the CrossFit Games. I mean, I kind of did, but I didn't really know. But like I could do one muscle up. I remember crying on the floor because I barely hit the minimum requirement on these like heavy dumbbell snatches. And even if I could one on my right hand, but I had never done it on my left. And the minimum requirement was 10 of these. And I did one on my right hand and I just couldn't get the one on my left. And I, just took time, and eventually I did it and I got the minimum requirement. But anyways, I knew I wasn't going to make it anyways, because in the final event, I couldn't deadlift 225 pounds. And I don't think I could do ring muscle ups at that point. And so that was the final event, and there was just no way. But back then, at that event, I snatched 115 pounds, and my best ever snatch is 180. So it's kind of cool to like also mark those differences. But anyway, so in 2012, I'm just like this young, I think they called me like the little nugget because I was like 18 years old, just not knowing what I was doing. And then as the sport grew, so it grew into bigger locations, bigger scene, bigger audience. And I don't think I realized how good I was. Even in 2013, I think I was in the top 10 after, the first 4 events or so. And I didn't even really know that. And I think I was just not very self-aware of how good I could be. I think I knew I wanted to be good. I knew I wanted to go to the games one day, but I didn't know why. And I didn't know, how. And I actually just didn't even know if I had the potential or not. So in 13, I feel looking back, I didn't have the framework yet, but if I had even had a spark of potential, of like real cognizant potential, then I might have taken a different path in 14 and 15. But anyway, so then in 14, I went team. In 15, I was like ready, but I wasn't ready. And in 16 was when it really took off for me. But this is where the story gets kind of interesting, because I had always felt that there was like this missing piece of the puzzle in those early competitive years. Like I needed, we tell these stories to ourselves, but it's our reality. I needed financial security, and I needed to be done with school because it was so stressful. And I needed a home, and I needed all of these things in order to be the athlete that I wanted to be. And, when you tell yourself those things and you're not aware that those things are holding you back, then they hold you back. And I, in 2016, graduated school. Kirstin got married, and I bought a house, and I got my first full-time job. And that was when I went from a CrossFit athlete to all of a sudden being on the stage. And in 2016, I think I just had unloaded so many backpacks off of my back that I had all of this new energy, and my body had so much less stress that it could go perform and it could go be its best. So I leaned out, I got insanely stronger, and it was all surprise to me. All I did was work out for an hour a day in CrossFit classes and learned how to push myself really hard. And a combo of that and de-stressing was amazing. So 2016, I did not do well in the open and barely qualified for regionals. I was like backfilled. Mm-hmm. I was like the third wave to get an invite. So I was in last place going into the 2016 regionals. And after day one, I was in first place. I had taken second on one of the events and fourth on another. And I was in the hot tub hanging out, eating a hamburger back at the hotel. And they called me and asked me to come back to the event center to do an interview because I was in first place. And I thought they were joking. And that was kind of fun. And then I'm just through the entire event, I remember poking you, Kirstin, at the elevator and being like, is this real? Is this really happening? So then after that, I faced like, maybe not imposter syndrome to be sure, but just kind of like, was this a fluke? Am I actually that fit? I came out of nowhere. So how am I going to do it all over again? What's going to happen in 2017? Am I that good? I have no idea. So anyways, and then in 2018, I had a perfect storm, which we can talk about it all as well. And then in 19, I moved to Australia, and the story just sort of continues.
Yeah. Well, for the sake of, I've got lots of things I want to kind of tackle, but I think that was a very interesting recap from your perspective for sure. Since, I definitely saw it from my side of things from the outside. Mm-hmm. So I would love to actually talk about your coaching a little bit and the journey that you've taken as far as becoming a really, really, really good coach. I think one of the things that, from my perspective, at least, is for that 2016 regionals, you mentioned that, you hadn't necessarily been training more than an hour or so per day. However, you had taken a ton of coaching courses. You had also done, you had been on some coaching staff.
I did the level 1 staff.
Well, yeah. And then some of the other Olympic weightlifting ones as well. So you also were mastering a lot of technique along the way to become a better coach. But I think you probably brought on some skills from there as well.
Yes. I had always felt very drawn to good movement. Mm-hmm. And at a very high level of CrossFit, I mean, not back in the day, but now to be that competitive, you have to move well. And I knew that. I knew that was the answer. I knew that in the times that I was growing up in the sport, so to speak, people weren't moving that well. But I knew that wasn't the longevity of the sport. Like if you watch all the lifters in the games now, they move incredibly. And I think back then, I moved better than a lot of those people. I'm not necessarily that strong compared to my competitors, but like in 2016 during that snatch ladder, I crushed it because I had technique. And so I do think that my coaching perspective did help that a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, okay. So kind of moving on through here. How was that transition, at least to doing triathlon? And well, there's a couple of different questions I have, but first, how was it? Okay. How was it going into triathlon and into trying out? Like, how did that Ironman go for you? Like that, would you suggest that somebody does it that way again? Just kind of jumping into it, just doing the Ironman straight out of the gate. What was that experience like for you? Yeah.
Well, let's really frame this for everybody. So I had all great intentions to train. And then COVID happened and they deferred our event to a different event. My sister and I were supposed to do Santa Rosa in 2020. And we got deferred to summer of 2021 at Coeur d'Alene. So during COVID, I was living with my parents at the time, building a tiny house. And my dad and I were riding a lot. I mean, we were on our bikes for, I don't know, probably 100 miles a week minimum. And it was great. It was lovely. I ran a lot. I didn't really know a whole lot about endurance running. So it was very high heart rate running. But nonetheless, I was running. And, gyms were closed. And so I did really lean into triathlon training. And I worked with Brent, and he was great. And I learned a few things that didn't actually end up coming to fruition until the actual Ironman. However, I did have a little bit of training under my belt. And then I started building the tiny house. Things started to open back up again, and CrossFit started to open back up again. And I was like, maybe I won't do this Ironman. But little did I know that you can't get a refund for these events. So, time just goes by. And I think this is something that we all experience with training and with being fit is, you're like, I'll start tomorrow. And then it doesn't happen. And then you're like, I'll start next Monday. And then you're like, it just didn't happen. And then, something else gets in the way and something else gets in the way. And it's just reality. But I also think that deep down inside, I knew physically that my body could handle it. Maybe not a long-term journey, but I knew that I could get through the event uninjured if I took care of myself. And I knew that I could walk. I knew that I could swim. I knew that I could bike ride. I knew I could finish the event. I just didn't think that I was going to be able to do it on a competitive level, which I didn't. And so for me, the Ironman turned into a test of what CrossFit prepared me for, rather than a test for what triathlon training prepared me for. And that for me was actually one of the coolest, most interesting things of them all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so how did the day end up going for you? Like, was it like, did you enjoy it?
Yeah. I, through the course of regionals and competing for CrossFit, at the end of the day, you take all the fitness away, you take my physical body away, and what you're left with, there are all these lessons and all these mindset tips and a competitive mindset and a awareness of the body and a understanding of what nutrition does to your body. And during that race, I got to use all of that. I got to use the mindset stuff. I got to use the nutrition. I got to use my body awareness. And I think that a lot of those things are what held me up. I thoroughly enjoyed it because I think I had the tools. But I think that would literally be torture for a lot of other people if they didn't have the tools. I mean, I posted on my Instagram video that said, like, it is what it is. And that these people are mentally dangerous because they can block out pain. And you do, that's what you do. I sat on my bike for 8.5 hours in the freaking hot sun, baking. I mean, my back, I looked like I had a disease. So I literally looked like I had a disease. And like, when I look back at it, I would totally do it again. Right? Yeah. It's weird, but I did enjoy the challenge. I was ready to be off my bike, obviously, but I did really enjoy it. And I fell in love with swimming. But the run was interesting because the run was the one thing I felt my body was most prepared for. And then by the end of the race, it was actually what I was least prepared for.
Gotcha. In what sense?
Maybe understanding of how far 26 miles was. The furthest I had ever run was like 8.5, maybe 10 miles. And
okay.
I mean, man, the sun just started going down and I was like, wow, I still have another loop. That's another 3 hours.
Yeah.
So it was, it was interesting.
Yeah. That was a 3-loop course, by a run course.
So each loop was taking like an hour and a half, I think.
Yeah, totally. So was there anything else from like, would you do another triathlon? Like, would you do another full Ironman again? Or would you do more like halves? Cause right after that, you also did the Salem half with me as well.
Yeah. So I don't know what Kirstin's influence is on me, but it's got to be some line of voodoo because she said she was doing Salem and I said, okay. But getting me into all these things, I did do Salem 30 days later. It was a half Ironman and it was much more reasonable, but I ended up having some sort of food poisoning.
Oh yeah.
And right. I threw up a few times on our walk to the start, and all of the athletes walking by me were like, oh, it's probably just nerves. And I was like, this is not nerves. I am not nervous.
No. Yeah. You felt so bad.
I had some gut upset.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is an athlete mindset as well. You're like, I can do it. And I could do it. I did. I justified. I was like, well, I'll be floating in the river. I'll just be laying there. So it's not like my stomach should be that bad. Like, it'll be okay. And then I was like, well, and then when I get out, like, I'm really just going to be sitting on my bike. And then it was what it was. I didn't eat the entire time. And then on the run, I was like, well, this is going to be the worst part. And so the first 800 meters, my jostling in my stomach, I was like, yeah, this is bad. And then it calmed down and you just figure out what you have to do to finish the task. And right. I did it. But I think I need redemption on both of those. Yeah. I need a less hot Ironman to compete in and a non-food related digestion problem for my half. And that would be probably the only reason I would do a half and a full again.
Okay. Yeah. Would you do some smaller sprints or Olympics?
Yeah, absolutely.
Periodically. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a cool sport. the competitive mindset is the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much crossover. Just listening to people at the start line and what they're thinking about and how nervous they get and, what goes through your mind when you're out there on the course. The minute I started thinking was the minute I got weak, and I just turned it off. I think my brain was blank for like 80% of that race. It was just completely black. I wasn't thinking about anything. So, there's a lot of parallels that you learn from one sport being competitive to another. And that does play a huge part in success.
Absolutely. So there's a lot more to come. We'll be right back after this short break. Okay, so I would love to dive in a little bit on nutrition and health and some of those aspects, because I know we could probably spend an entire podcast talking about that alone. But you've definitely gone down the road of helping people out with their nutrition and their health from actually quite a different perspective than I have. So as far as like nutrition goes, I know there's a lot of things that you've learned over your journey as well. What was that journey like? Let's just start out there. What was that journey like of learning about nutrition and food and all of that?
Yeah. Kirstin and I both came from a pretty healthy background. Like our parents always fed us vegetables, and my mom was very conscious of partially hydrogenated foods before they were even a popular thing. And I think that we're both very blessed to have come from a good background. Because as Kirstin talks about all the time, those early development years and what you're putting in your kids' bodies and stuff, it's very important. But I was always really drawn to like Kraft mac and cheese and Campbell's chicken noodle soup. I just absolutely love them. So I've always known deep down inside that I have this draw to chemically foods, but that's something that I had to fight. But anyway, so when we were in volleyball, we used to carb load. We would go to the spaghetti factory or Olive Garden or something and get all this pasta and then wake up all puffy in the morning. And it was such an odd thing to do that. But deep down inside, I also knew that it wasn't right, but we just did it anyways, because that's what people told us to do. And so then when I started CrossFit, paleo was like this huge thing, right? Where we were eating absolutely no grains, absolutely no sugar. It was just literally meat and veggies. And there were no even beans. I mean, what on earth? And so actually paleo was a light bulb for me that I thought maybe one day I would have abs. I thought I would never have abs. I thought I was always going to be a little bit chubbier. That was just my body type. And paleo showed me that I could lean out a little bit. However, paleo is a very high protein, high fat diet. And there came a time where when I started working out more, just some random member at the gym suggested, they were like, well, you can't eat a low carb diet and be an athlete. And I was like, whoa, you're right. You're right. What am I doing? So I started adding, this is where my journey got like really interesting, but I started adding carbs into my diet. And the first thing I did was oats, because I didn't want to add like pastas and breads. And I was already eating a little bit of sweet potato. And so I started adding oats into my breakfast. And I noticed that when I would go to the gym after doing this, I couldn't breathe during workouts. I was like, I felt like I had asthma. Like it was just, I was so bad. I was like, someone give me an inhaler. This is horrible. And there were people that were like, oh, maybe you just need to work on it. And I was like, no, this has never happened before. I've never had a problem with my cardiovascular endurance ever. And, or even just like my respiratory, any of it. And so, I was like, no, there's something wrong. It's something different. And I was like, well, what has changed? The only thing that had changed was that I added oats. So I eliminated oats. Sure enough, my respiratory was fine. Right? Very interesting. So the reason that this example is like so important is because I think people think that they eat healthy, which is probably true. They might eat generally healthy foods, but healthy foods can also have a bad effect on your body. Like my body also doesn't like avocados. Avocados are good for you, but I get a serious gut upset from avocados. Like I have a sensitivity to them. But, as stress changed in my life, I could handle more oats. So now I can eat like a bar with oats in it and I can have like one or two, but I don't think I could do, 3 bowls of oats a week. I don't think that could happen. But, just the idea of nutrition coming and going in your body, and also paying attention that everybody is going to have sort of a different recipe, and everyone is going to have different sensitivities. And it's crazy how many people are shocked when you tell them that. Just because it's healthy, it doesn't mean that it's good for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different, I think that's where a lot of the different types of diets have come from at this point. Like you've got keto and paleo and like all the different, there's so many different types. I don't even think that I even know of all the different types that there are, but I think a lot of them have just sort of, I think it's not getting caught on one specific type of diet. It's more of just figuring out I think the lesson to take out of all of them is that there's likely going to be something that works very well and specifically for you and your needs and your requirements, versus like you've got to fit into the mold of one of the many, right? Like it should be very specific to you.
Yeah. I look at it as like kind of coaching a group class. Mm-hmm. So if I was going to teach a class of 15 people and I'm going to teach them a lift, I'm going to go over the basics. I'm going to go over the things that everybody should know. Right. And then once we break, I'm going to go to each individual person and I'm going to give them their own little recipe of what they need. Like that person has a rough shoulder, so I'm going to change it up for them. That person, can't squat very low, so I'm going to change the lift for them. That person has an injured knee, so I'm going to help them. And they get these little specific things that work for them. And those things come and go probably. And they change over time. It's the exact same thing with nutrition. These mass, popular diets are, they're nutrition fads, but they are also teaching the masses. They're teaching the group. And then your individuals need to learn how to adjust it for themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why you exist, so that you can individualize these things for people based on what's happening on a chemical level inside their body. Yeah. And I figured that out kind of the hard way. I figured it out on my own. But obviously there's a lot more information now about nutrition out there. It's a very new science, and it's just exploded over the last 10 years, I feel like. And so that's kind of like where that came from. But I also think that something that really changed my perspective on nutrition was muscle testing, because people tell me all the time, they're like, oh, well, I have enough salt in my diet. I take enough electrolytes and I drink enough water, but I cramp every day. And I'm like, okay, just because you're doing all the right things, it doesn't mean that there isn't something else that's causing that cramping. Just because the only thing that's out there on the internet says that cramping is caused by dehydration, it doesn't mean that that's actually what's happening. And, I got to work with someone that does muscle testing, and I'm not saying I had cramping, but this is just a really great example of how she could influence a chemical level in my body and have an outcome as such that I would never cramp anymore. Right? Because nutrition isn't just like, I'm going to eat this, I'm going to take this supplement, I'm going to fix this, whatever in my body, and I hope I feel good and I hope I have enough energy. It's so much more than that. It is literally, and you talk about your mitochondria all the time. It is so much more. It is how your cells are functioning. Are your cells thriving? Are you on a deep level functioning? And it's kind of like just dumping chemicals into a pool to keep it at a good balance, like a chlorine balance and all that stuff. You can dump them in there. That's great. But if you have a bunch of bacteria living on the bottom of the pool, you're just trying to mask a problem. You can give it all at once, but there's just a problem on the surface, or on the depths. And so, a lot of the nutrition that I learned, I feel from a competitor standpoint, was really changed by muscle testing and figuring out what was going on a chemical level inside my body and not just shoving food in my body.
Yeah, absolutely. So from the perspective, as far as like nutrition goes for sport, that was all amazing, but we're going to keep moving.
I know. I gotcha.
What did you learn as far as like fueling for CrossFit versus for triathlon? Like, I know I helped you out a lot with like the triathlon side of things, but as far as like making sure that there was a journey that you took when you were trying to figure out what you should be eating and what you should be doing as far as nutrition goes for a lot of like your regional level competitions. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching that journey change and shift over time. Can you kind of shed some light into like what you like to do as far as like nutrition and fueling goes around your workouts and then also on competition day?
Yeah. So obviously, I mean, maybe this is not obvious. Maybe it goes unsaid. I don't know. But what you do on game day needs to be practiced during training. And I think maybe sometimes people think like, oh, I can't eat on my races what I eat like every day because I don't have like a skillet out there with me to like cook some veggies. So, you kind of have to make your training easy. So your nutrition easy so that you can take that and put it in a race. Is that what you're talking about? Is just kind of like that race day fueling?
Yeah. Just like, what do you do any pre-workout? Do you do any post-workout for your training? Do you do any like fueling during your workouts? Like, what's your jam? What do you do? Okay.
So my favorite is combining my protein and my carbs. I just feel like it's super easy and it comes in one shake. And I know you've talked about maltodextrin sort of adding bloat to the body, but for me, it doesn't cause that. And so I have a protein shake that has 22 grams of protein and 45 grams of carbs. And it fueled so many of my training sessions. I think so many people go into a training session underfueled and then come out of it just dead, that their recovery is going to suck or their performance sucked. And they're just never on top of the hill. They're just like always climbing up the hill. And like when you train, you got to be on top of that hill to have a clear mind. And so I would take that like before and after every training session, which was obviously lots of training sessions. And when I did my race for Ironmans, I had that carb solution in my water bottle in the front of my bike. So I was just like constantly drinking carbs. And then, so for CrossFit, I did a lot of just chicken and rice. And my greatest fear was that my gut was not going to be in a good place because of, the height of adrenaline and your body just sort of does weird things under competition. But as I got better and better competing, my gut withstood it way better. So when I would have like healthy poops, it's hilarious, but when I would have healthy poops during competition, I'd be like, this is amazing. And then for the Ironman, you and I did chicken and rice for like 24 hours. And it was something that my body already knew so well that I think, it created a really good training or race day environment for me. And my body was so happy during that Ironman that I think I did a good job of, managing the heat exhaustion and stuff as well. But this was your suggestion. I actually made a whole bunch of pancakes for my race day in the Ironman and also for the half, which I didn't end up eating because I had food problem. But I put whey protein in those, and I don't usually do great with whey protein, but I found a specific brand of whey protein that worked really well for me. And I don't know if that's everything that you were kind of talking about, but that's some of it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I remember being on the bike course and seeing like a whole baggie of pancakes. And I remember thinking, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope those weren't hers.
Those are mine. I remember dropping them because, well, you know how it goes. Like, you're trying to take them out, you're trying to like open this bag and try to eat them, and it just falls out of your hand and you're like, no. And I remember dropping them and thinking, Kirstin's going to see that. She's going to see that my pancakes are on the ground just sizzling. And those were my pancakes. They lost a pancake. Yeah.
Oh man. I just remember seeing that, being like, oh gosh, I hope those aren't hers, but gosh, those really look like hers.
Yeah, there's really only like one pancake like that with like the Ziploc bag and the green, it's
yeah. Oh, that's super funny. Okay. Last question for you. Do you take any supplements? Do you have any sort of supplement routine?
I do. And I have my go-tos, right?
Yeah.
My absolutely go-tos. So non-negotiable is Tissue Rejuvenator by Hammer Nutrition. Like, non-negotiable. I take it every day. And if I am really sore, if I'm injured right now, I have some knee inflammation, I'll bump it up to like 4 a.m. and 4 at night or whatever. And, but like on a regular maintenance, I'll just take like 2 and 2. During competition, I was taking, man, I guess that's like my main, go-to, but like I said, the body's always changing. And so with the chiropractor that I see and the muscle testing, she's always got me on some sort of recipe of things. So there's always a handful of, standard process supplements that, are sort of coded to make sure my body has everything it needs. So right now I'm currently taking like a Spanish black radish for my gallbladder. And yeah, I feel like that's pretty much it. It's just my Tissue Rejuvenator. And then if I really feel like my body is in pain, I do take a CBD, like a tincture, and I have a lot of it. So I'll take it liberally if I, if I feel like I'm in pain. But yeah, man, I'm surprised that list isn't longer, I guess, looking back at it.
Well, that's good, actually. Just depending on the seasons that you're in, but that's actually good. Okay. So what is your coaching program? What is that looking like right now? What are you doing?
I have several online programs.
Okay.
Right now I'm working on launching my own app.
Okay.
And inside of the app, there are a handful of different coaching programs. So you can like learn how to do toes to bar in a matter of minutes. You can get your butterfly pull-ups in a matter of minutes if you're prepared for it. You can look at all of the common flaws of all the Olympic lifts. So once you pay for access, you get all these training and coaching videos. Aside from that, there's also a program on there built for your everyday CrossFitter, to prepare for things like the Open, and then also to get fit. But the reason it's different is because I think a lot of programs that are out there don't have this ability to grab your investment. And these programs are great because it encourages you to keep doing them. Because if you miss a day, you're like, oh shoot, now I won't have that data for next week. And so it encourages you to keep up. And it just sort of like mentally invests you. And then aside from that, I have a nutrition program on there that's more about your relationship with food. It's more about body awareness and paying attention to how you think about food. If you skip meals, what that means. And kind of, body awareness, paying attention to what the signs in your body are telling you. It's obviously not any kind of prescription or it's not like you should do this for your nutrition. It's more about like, let's look internal and pay attention to what's happening inside your own body. And then I also have a kickstart. So for those of you who are really struggling with getting training done daily or overthinking or, you're just stuck, which we've all felt. I know Kirstin has. I've felt that. It sucks. I hate it, but it takes a mindset to get you out of it because you literally have all the tools. And so I have a 6-week program all based on the Kickstart.
Yeah. Mostly geared towards CrossFit-ish athletes.
Yeah. I mean, there's no triathlon training involved in it. It's all functional fitness for sure.
Yeah.
So there's no barbell per se. There's no like snatch and clean and jerk specifically in that program. They're all workouts that you can do with no equipment if you needed to. But the method for changing your habits and changing your mindset is a daily workout, which is so powerful because it's so much action and you get this amazing chemical response after you work out. That's just sort of like sets your day. So,
yeah. So where can our listeners find you?
Mainly Instagram, Tia Wright 06. That's a big one. And then I do have a website, but the app is just coach-tia.passion.io.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
so
very
if
good.
you guys want to go check that out, you just type the link in and then one day it'll launch as an actual app. But
awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And that's our episode for now. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow Wisp Sports on all social media channels. And if you enjoy these episodes, it would be really helpful if you would share these with anyone you think may love it. It helps us get the podcast out to more people, just like how you found us. You can also follow me at Dr. Kirstin on Facebook and Instagram and drkirstin.com. If you'd like to reach us with any comments or questions about this episode or for future episodes, you can at info@wispsports.com. And you can always leave a direct message with us over on social media as well. Thank you so much for listening, and I will be back next week. Take care.